Hi guys, what is going on and welcome back to another drone video. Today I'll be putting the Air 3S up against the brand new Mini 5 Pro. And listen guys, if you're looking into getting one of these drones and you're having a hard time picking one over the other, I get it. This is probably one of the hardest choices out there right now when it comes to picking a drone over another drone. And the main reason for that, as I see it, is because DJI decided to put the same sensor that the Air 3S has over on the Mini 5 Pro. So they're basically identical when it comes to image quality and performance in low light, etc. At the same time, the Mini 5 Pro is also much cheaper, it's smaller, it also comes with newer features that the Air 3S doesn't even have. So I guess the main question of today's video really becomes, why even pick the Air 3S over the Mini 5 Pro? And that's what I'm gonna try and help you out with in this video. And then at the end of this video, I'll share my personal opinion on which drone I would get if I had to pick between the two. All right, enough yapping. Let's dive in.
Alright, so let's start on the outside. So the first obvious difference here is the size. The Air 3S is a much bigger drone than the Mini 5 Pro, which makes the Mini 5 Pro much more travel friendly, both in terms of size and the weight. Now, speaking of the weight, the Air 3S comes in at 723 grams, which puts it in the C1 category, while my Mini 5 Pro comes in at 253 grams and is labeled as a C0 drone. Now, to be classified as C0, a drone technically needs to be under 250 grams, but in the EU, the weight is allowed to deviate by plus minus 4 grams and still count as a C0 drone. The max altitude on the Mini 5 Pro as a C0 drone is 120 meters, but increases to 500 meters if you upgrade it to a C1. For the Air 3S, on the other hand, you get a max altitude of 1000 meters. Now, the legal limit is still 120 meters above the ground, but when you're flying up mountains where the terrain constantly changes, the drone doesn't really understand that. That is why having a higher altitude limit is nice to have. Now, for build quality and durability, I haven't really crashed the Air 3S yet, but I have crashed the Mini 5 Pro twice without any damage. That said, a heavier drone equals more impact force, so I would imagine it's easier for the Air 3S to take damage simply because of the extra weight. Now, quickly touching on design as well, they both look great in my opinion, but the Air 3S has a little more aggressive design and is in fact my favorite design out of all the DJI drones. Alright, so let's move over to the camera. Both these drones share the same 24mm wide angle 1-inch sensor, which means you get identical image quality basically. They also have the same video specs. Both can shoot up to 4K 60 frames per second in HLG and D-Log-M for color grading. And for slow motion, they both go up to 4K 120 frames per second and 1080p 240 frames per second for super slow motion. But there are some major differences in how you can actually shoot with these drones. One of the biggest things that separates the Air 3S from the Mini 5 Pro is the dedicated 3x telephoto lens. In real-world use, this makes a massive difference, giving you proper close-ups, background compression, and a much stronger parallax effect. The Mini 5 Pro only has the main 24mm lens. Now, with that said, if you use the 2x digital zoom on the Mini 5 Pro, DJI has optimized it so that you don't lose out that much quality compared to cropping 2x in post. Now, another big difference is slow motion. The Air 3S can shoot slow motion while using the 3x telephoto, which is not possible with the 2x zoom on the Mini 5 Pro. But if you shoot 4K 60 frames per second with the 2x zoom on the Mini 5 Pro, you still have enough frames to get decent slow motion in post. Now, for the gimbal tilt, they are pretty similar, with the Air 3S tilting the gimbal 60 degrees up and down, while the Mini 5 Pro can tilt it 55 degrees. But the Mini 5 Pro has something special the Air 3S doesn't have, and that is the ability to rotate the gimbal as well, up to 180 degrees to the right and 45 degrees to the left. This is an awesome feature that lets you capture more unique shots and stand out from the rest. On top of that, it also has true vertical shooting using the full resolution of the sensor with full gimbal tilt range. With the Air 3S, your best option for vertical shooting is the 2.7K crop mode, which will give you somewhat a better field of view and quality compared to just cropping vertically in post from the 16:9 image. But overall, the Mini 5 Pro has far better capabilities for vertical shooting. Now, they also both have the same photography capabilities, shooting RAW up to 50 megapixels, giving you a lot of room to crop in post, but because of the vertical shooting, the Mini 5 Pro has the edge. Now, speaking of wind, DJI has rated both of these drones at 12 meters a second max wind resistance. This is a bit odd because the weight difference and size of the Air 3S makes it a much more reliable drone in windy conditions due to its size and weight in a real-life scenario. Now, when it comes to storage, both of these drones comes with a 42GB inbuilt storage. Battery life is also solid on both drones. The Mini 5 Pro gets up to 36 minutes with the standard batteries and up to 52 minutes with the plus batteries, while the Air 3S is rated for up to 45 minutes of max flight time. Now, in real world flying, you're never going to hit these numbers, but overall, both drones have very good flight time. Now, for the noise, the Mini 5 Pro is a bit quieter due to its smaller size, so if you're flying in more crowded areas, it draws less attention and makes less noise overall. Okay, moving over to obstacle avoidance and tracking. Now, for obstacle avoidance, they are pretty much identical with the same amount of sensors and a front-facing LiDAR sensor. The Mini 5 Pro does not have two LiDAR sensors in front, which I thought at first. This one to the left is just for design purposes. Now, for the tracking, the Mini 5 Pro has a couple of extra tracking features for cycling and skiing that the Air 3S does not have, but this can probably be added via firmware somewhere down the line. Now, for the tracking itself, you will get pretty much the same performance, which I have found to work great during my tests. However, it is not something that should be trusted blindly, especially when tracking sideways or backing up, which I painfully learned during my Mini 5 Pro ActiveTrack test. Now, we also have some new ease of use features that came with the Mini 5 Pro. The first one is that the Mini 5 Pro powers on automatically when you unfold the arms, and the same happens when you plug in the battery. It also has dynamic home point, which means the drone will return to where you're standing rather than where you originally took off. Alright, so lastly we have the price. Now, the Mini 5 Pro with the Fly More combo comes in at 1169 euros, while the Air 3S comes in at 1649 euros. So obviously the Mini 5 Pro is a much cheaper drone, which is a big deal breaker for a lot of people, which brings me over to the conclusion of this video.
Alright guys, so as you can tell, both of these drones do have a lot of good things in common, but there are some major things that do separate these two drones. But I'm gonna list the three biggest things the Air 3S has that the Mini 5 Pro doesn't have as I see it. The first one being obviously the 3x telephoto, then we have the wind resistance and the max altitude of 1000 meters. For the Mini 5 Pro, you have the rotating gimbal, the vertical shooting capabilities, the smaller size, and of course the price. Those are the biggest differences as I see them. So let's start with which drone I would pick if I had to choose between the two. And it really comes down to personal needs. Now, I have given this a lot of thought. That is why I can easily say I would pick the Air 3S over the Mini 5 Pro. And this is because I live in Norway. I'm often on top of high mountains that has a lot of wind, and that max altitude also serves me well because of all these mountains around me. Also, the 3x telephoto on the Air 3S, I love being able to get closer to stuff, and the fact that I can shoot with the 3x in slow motion as well, it makes such a huge difference, and I know myself enough that I wouldn't be able to live without that, is what I'm trying to say. Now, I don't really post vertical content. That is also why it's easier for me to pick the Air 3S. At the same time, I would like to say that I would hate losing out on the rotating gimbal on the Mini 5 Pro. But just because I would pick the Air 3S over the Mini 5 Pro doesn't mean it's the right drone for you. And in fact, I think for most of you guys, the Mini 5 Pro probably does make a lot more sense. And let me explain why. First and foremost, the price. Now, at the same time, I'm gonna guess that a lot of you guys also like posting on social media. And because this drone has such great vertical shooting capabilities, I think it's going to cater more towards the masses. Now, also, of course, the size, the smaller body, it's more travel friendly. So as I said, it comes down to personal needs. Do you find yourself struggling with wind when you're outside? Do you see yourself using that 3x telephoto a lot? Then maybe the Air 3S is the right choice for you. If you post a lot on social media and you see yourself using the rotating gimbal and you want something cheaper, smaller, more travel friendly, the Mini 5 Pro makes sense. Alright guys, drop a comment below. I would like to hear which drone you think is the better drone over the other and why. If you found this video helpful, I would appreciate it if you could smash that like and subscribe button before you head off. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want more drone content, stick around, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Fly safe.